Week 1 of the NFL season almost in the books. I mean, it's really in the books because Denver is going to handle Seattle tonight, I would have to imagine. But it's Onorato and company with this KPM restoration rapid reaction. Our guy Jamie Kennedy doing all the good cleanup in the capital region and beyond the 518. If it's fire, water, mold, whatever you've got going on, the team at KPM Restoration will make it like new. They say get you back to normal. Nothing normal about this football weekend. That is for darn sure, Ash.
No, I think last year we thought this too, like, because you make these assumptions and you have these ideas about what teams are going to be, and then it all gets blown up in week 1.
Yeah, crazy. And the college football we're reacting to as well. Let's go.
This Onorato and Company Rapid Reaction is presented by KPM Restoration.
We said it, getting you back to normal. KPM Restoration in the capital region. Call them for any of your cleanup needs, fire, water, mold, business, residential. They got you covered. All right, week 1. Let's start there, and then we'll go backwards to college football. The Saturday college football stuff was unbelievable.
Crazy.
Great games. Even when teams didn't get upset, they were pushed to the absolute brink. It was a lot of fun. I know you want to talk about this first, so let's just do it. There are plenty of Giants fans, obviously, who watch us here. So let's start with the Giants and the New York Post. The back of the New York Post had some play on Brian Daboll's last name, and
I gotcha.
And the male anatomy.
Yep, I saw it all over Twitter.
And look, he earned it with this 2-point conversion call.
Yeah, no doubt. As a fan, I always hesitate to be behind going for 2 and the win. I always think, why not just kick the field goal? But the way that field goals and extra points went yesterday, we might never kick a field goal ever again in the history of the NFL because kickers were real bad yesterday.
About it.
Listen, it worked out. I was thrilled that it worked out. Daboll goes for 2. And after, in the post game, he basically said, I huddled my guys and said, listen, if we score, I want to go for 2. Are you good with that? He wanted their blessing, quote unquote. He wanted them to be behind it. If they all said no, then he probably would have kicked the extra point. But they were behind it. Go ahead.
I love that as a head coach, right? Here is a guy who's in the most powerful position of this team, right? Other than the owner and maybe the GM. Look, if the player said, no, we don't want to, does he ultimately not go for 2? We'll never know. But I love the fact that he is taking their input and seemingly deferring to his guys. Hey, you're the ones who have to go out there and execute a play, or would you rather play in overtime? Deferring to his guys. We are a team. We're going to make this decision as a team. It's not just going to be me, and it's not just going to be the offensive coordinator. Let's decide as a team that this is what we want to do, because then we can stand up there and take all the criticism in the world, and we're not pointing fingers. Hey, this was a decision we made as a group. How many head coaches in the NFL are going to do that, or any other league? There are very few managers in any walk of life who are going to take that kind of input from their employees, right? And then, okay, now we move forward as a team. No, there often is this, hard-handed attitude by a manager. I love that he consulted his team on that.
Yeah, and there are not a lot of players, because it's also an ego-driven league. There aren't a lot of players who are going to say, no, we don't want to go for 2, because then you get the impression that you're soft, you're afraid, you don't, you don't want to take risk. Almost every team, if a coach said that, is going to say, yes, let's go for 2. But I agree, because in the Joe Judge era, in the Ben McAdoo era, that was not an option. That was not something that either of those coaches would have done. It would have been, we are going for 2, or we are kicking the extra point. There's no question. There's no conferring with other people. It also helps when you have Saquon Barkley looking like the Saquon Barkley of old. Saquon Barkley was fantastic yesterday. If that guy stays healthy, he's the guy you want to sign to the contract. Daniel Jones, I'm still not so sure. But yes, Saquon Barkley looked fantastic. And when you can give the ball to him, even on that 2-point conversion, he showed it. He should have been dead to rights. He kind of ducked and went right. and then plowed over somebody on his way to the end zone. Not every running back is going to do that.
Yeah, and I think, look, I'm really reading into this thing, but I think Barkley is running with purpose on that play, knowing that he's been empowered by his head coach. This is your decision, guys.
Yep.
We're going for it. Show me what you got, right?
Yeah.
Something tells me we might get back to Matt's Bears later on in this rapid reaction segment when we do biggest surprises in week 1. The Bears might be one of our choices for that.
Yeah, maybe.
Jets lose to the Ravens. No surprise. Lamar Jackson threw 3 TDs. This was bad football for the majority of the game. I can't believe that there were that many points that ended up being scored in this game. 24-9 Baltimore at MetLife Stadium.
Yeah, the Jets. Listen, I know they have Joe Flacco in at quarterback. He wasn't the problem. No. Their offensive line was not good. His receivers dropped passes. Nobody was good in this game for the New York Jets.
Breece Hall fumbles in his debut. Flacco did throw a TD. He also threw a pick. The Jets I'm not going to make any judgment on the Jets until I see Zach Wilson play for like 4 or 5 consecutive weeks with this group. Then I'll start to think, okay, I know what I'm seeing. Until then, they might lose every game Flacco starts. Their schedule is brutal before the bye week. And in particular, really the first 6 games of the season. They had 1-5, 0-6, this team. It's not going to be pretty for the New York Jets. Also in the division, Dolphins rolled by New England. That did not surprise me. It was close to start, but I figured Miami would they're just better. They're just better. New England's not very good. I mean, there's not a lot of talent on that roster.
No, and Mac Jones gets hurt.
Yeah.
We'll see where that goes. I would imagine a back injury. You're not going to play next week, but who knows? I don't know if it'll be more severe than that or not. But injuries were another thing in week 1 that, I mean, huge implications for several different teams. This probably being the biggest one.
For sure. Yeah, the quarterback. I mean, anytime you lose the quarterback, I know the Steelers may have lost the defensive player of the year for the season with a torn pec. This is Prescott missing half the season, Ash. And then what is he really when he comes back from this thumb injury? Dallas cannot roll with Cooper Rush and try to win that division. Philadelphia is too good, even though they made it too interesting in Detroit yesterday. Yeah. This is brutal for a Dallas team that I know a lot of people liked. I didn't as much as most, but I hate when I see stars get injured. I hate when I see quarterbacks get injured. You just immediately, as a fan of that team, figure, well, season's over. Yep. Brutal.
And I am not a Cowboys fan by any stretch of the imagination. But I do feel bad for a guy like Dak. He's been through a lot. The injuries seem to just kind of get after him more than they do others. So I feel bad with, and you want, at the end of the day, you want a team to be full strength. If you're the Giants or the Eagles, you want to beat a full strength Cowboys team. You don't want to win the division because Dak Prescott's out for half the season. And now you've got a 4-game lead in the division by the time he gets back. Maybe that's what happens for the Eagles. Maybe they win enough games and that Dallas loses enough games. They weren't good with Dak Prescott last night. For a majority of that game, they put up 3 points. They were really bad. The defense wasn't great either, and that was keeping Tom Brady to, 4 field goals in their first 4 trips to the red zone. But yeah, this is, I think, one of the surprises was just how bad the Cowboys were yesterday, even with Prescott on the field. So I can't imagine what it'll be like with him not on the field.
Got their schedule here. Cowboys go Bengals, Giants, Commanders, Rams, Eagles. Their next 5.
Okay.
That's 1-4 at best, right? I mean, Giants on a Monday night at MetLife.
They could win, depending on what Giant. We don't know anything about the Giants yet.
Okay.
I mean, they could win 2 of those games, beat the Commanders.
Yes. Yep. Could beat the Commanders.
About the Eagles. Those division games are always kind of a, So
here's the other injury news that's significant. Now, the Najee Harris thing is his foot. He had a Liz Frank injury going into the game. Don't know his stat. TJ Watt's the real concern here is that it could be a torn pec, which I think would automatically rule him out for the season, really, Ash. I don't know many guys who get who
Well,
tear their
JJ
pec.
did that how long ago? JJ tore his pec. Wasn't it his pec? I think it was.
He's had shoulders, pecs,
Yeah, and I think he did come back within that season, but it
elbows.
was late in the year.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. This would be just, again, a shame because
Yep.
he's the reigning defensive player of the year. Najee Harris, maybe the prognosis is better on him and his foot. But either way, you get a nice win. Which, stinks if you're Pittsburgh, certainly, that week 2, I don't imagine you're going to have either of these guys out there. Harris would be the only possibility, it seems. And I don't think that's going to happen for him.
And that was a defense that made Joe Burrow look very pedestrian yesterday. Early on in that game, he had 3 picks. I think as I looked up at the halftime score, it was like, hey, he's got 3 picks.
Right.
And I know J.J. Watt is not doing that, but J.J. Watt affects everything on that defensive side of the ball. He puts pressure on the quarterback, which forces the quarterback to throw faster. Everything that he does plays into picks or fumbles or any turnover that's caused. He probably has a hand in it, even if he's not the one sacking the quarterback or picking the ball off.
This is the problem when you have a JJ and a TJ and they play the same sport and side of the ball. Sometimes we call them JJ and he's TJ. That's okay.
TJ.
Yeah. Biggest surprise from week 1 in the NFL. The Bills steamrolled on Thursday night, past the defending Super Bowl champs. No surprise there. Biggest surprise.
I mean, maybe the score in that game surprised me a little. The fact that they turned it over 4 times and won by 21. That surprised me.
I've got 2. What is your biggest surprise?
You're not going to like my biggest surprise. And I'm not going to overreact to it. But for me, the Packers-Vikings game was the biggest surprise.
Okay.
I mean, from a Packers fan who talked a lot about how great that Packers defense was. And I know Justin Jefferson is good, but there was no one within 10 yards of Justin Jefferson on several occasions. That's not good. And scoring 7 points is also not good. My dad's a Packers fan. He was convinced that those rookie receivers were going to come out and be gangbusters. Well, they weren't yesterday. I think the Packers have big problems. I'm not going to overreact. They lost by 30 points in the opener last year to the Saints, but I think they have big problems.
Yeah, it was 35 or 38-3 at Lambeau Field to the Saints. Didn't even get in the end zone a year ago in week 1. So a slow start there, a slow start here. I'm not going to play the eternal optimist here, but I will say the fact that Jefferson had 184 yards and 2 touchdowns doesn't make me want to lose my mind.
He's going to do that to more than one team.
When you have Jair Alexander, who's supposed to be an all-pro corner, chasing him around, that his wide open look shouldn't be as wide open as they were. And even Jefferson said post-game, I was surprised. I was as wide open as I was on some of those. Okay. Here's my thing with the offense. First play from scrimmage, Aaron Rodgers throws an absolute dime down the field, down the sideline to Christian Watson, who is wide open, ran right by his defender. It's in stride, in his hands. He drops it. As quickly as the ball bounces off his hands and to the turf in Minnesota, he has his hands up over he cannot believe he dropped a touchdown, a perfect throw. Okay, that would have tied the game at 7. They then get stopped on a 4th and 1 at the goal line, which could have been a 3rd touchdown of the day. So it wasn't all anemic. To me, it feels like week 1, awful showing, slow start. But I've become used to this when Rodgers doesn't play any preseason games. He has no chemistry with these rookie receivers yet. You can't rely on guys like Randall Cobb and the oft-injured Sammy Watkins to get the job done on their own. You don't have Allen Lazard, who is your number 1 wide receiver. I just think that the offense could have helped the defense more than it did.
Sure.
And I think they're going to be okay. I really do. I honestly, I've been bad about this. I've not pulled up their schedule, and people watching don't really care all that much. But they host the Bears on Sunday night next week. Then they go to Tampa. Then they play the Patriots. Then they go to London to play your Giants, and they get the Jets after that with the Commanders. I mean, they have very winnable games here in the next.
Listen, outside of the Bucks.
Right.
I get it. But the thing that I would always say is like, and I know It's not in their control, but Devontae Adams isn't dropping that ball.
Oh,
And
God, no.
I'm not saying that Christian Watson is going to drop that ball if you throw it to him another 8 times, but he might because he's Christian Watson. He's not Devontae Adams.
Yeah, but Devontae Adams was a second-round pick from Fresno State. He's not, a top 10 receiver either. He developed into a really good receiver, maybe the best in the league. I'm not giving up on Watson yet, but my goodness, when I saw that, I thought the first throw of the game is a gimme touchdown, and he couldn't catch it. My biggest surprise, it's the Bears. And I like Justin Fields. I always thought Justin Fields would end up being pretty darn good. But in that weather against a really good defense, to find a way to win that game, I was impressed and I was surprised. Do you know how many people are on the 49ers to make the playoffs, maybe even make a Super Bowl run, and they lose week 1 in Chicago?
I might be the biggest Niners hater out there.
Well, I don't
because
like them.
What has Trey Lance done that would tell you he's going to be a good quarterback and can lead that team anywhere? Nothing.
Yeah.
As much as Justin Fields has done. They were two unproven quarterbacks that haven't done anything yet. For me, it was like, okay, it's the Niners. Go out and beat the Packers, different story. It's the Niners. Listen, it was fun. Coolest moment of the game was at the end when they slid through the water. I've watched that video 100 times. I think it's the coolest thing that's ever been done on a football field.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, though. I like Justin Fields, and I just don't like the Niners. I like the Niners defense, but I don't like the Niners.
Maybe this should be more surprising. A tie game from Indianapolis and Houston. What are we doing?
Yeah. Matt Ryan's first game, at least they didn't lose it.
It's when they were down playing football.
I know, but when they were down like 2 touchdowns, I was like, oh boy.
I know.
At least they tied it.
Heck of a comeback.
That's what I thought. At least they tied it.
Heck
That's a tie that you take if you're the Colts.
This was a wild Saturday in college football. The Sun Belt Conference, my goodness. Appalachian State wins at A&M, number 6th ranked Texas A&M. Marshall wins at number 8 Notre Dame. That's a bad football team in South Bend. I'll tell you right now, that offense stinks. I will not. Let me pull up their schedule here. I will not spend another Saturday watching this Notre Dame football team.
That's a lie.
Because the offense is so bad. They play Cal, North Carolina. They host BYU. Ooh, that's a big one. Stanford, UNLV, Syracuse, Clemson, Navy, Boston College, USC.
At this rate, they might not beat Syracuse.
They're going to lose 6 games. They're going to lose 6.
Listen, they're going to lose BYU. They're going to lose North Carolina. North Carolina puts up points in bunches.
Yeah.
They can't stop anybody, but if Notre Dame's offense stinks, then
they can't score. Right. Correct. They're bad. They're very, very bad. And then Georgia State wins at Nebraska, and that ends up being the final game Scott Frost coaches for his Cornhuskers, the team he won a national championship with, a 13-0 season.
Quick bumpy ride for Scott Frost.
Don't hire the legend. Don't hire the legend. It never – I mean, how often does it work out?
And it just stinks so hard to fire the legend. It's like the fall from grace. I hate it.
Don't hire him because you know you're going to have to fire him.
Yep.
Bad. Really bad. Yeah. I don't know. Is one of these worse for you than the other? I don't know.
No, none of them are good.
App State almost won week 1 against North Carolina.
App State is legit.
And it's a program that has proven it can win in big spots.
App State is legit. I think Marshall is legit. Herbie said on game day he thought that Marshall would make it a game with Notre Dame. Not only did they make it a game, they won. And Georgia State, is that the most surprising for me? No, because Nebraska has been bad the last 3, 4, 5 years, and they had nothing surprises me about Nebraska losing.
Nebraska was a 20.5-point favorite. Notre Dame was a 20.5-point favorite. Texas A&M was a 17.5-point favorite. So all more than 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
A couple of them 3-touchdown favorites.
And I'll lose outright.
Yeah, not pretty. Bama taken to the brink by Texas. What a great game that was. I could not.
And for me, and I know, listen, Saban would tell you it was a terrible performance by them, and that's fine. But for me, that implies that Texas is not only headed in the right direction, but maybe they're close to back. Because by next year, obviously they lose their quarterback for a significant amount of time. But their backup's not bad. Houston Card's a pretty good backup. So yeah, for me, I think Texas is, if they're not back, they're really close to back. And that's good for football. It's very good for football. Tennessee is really good. There are some teams that are fun, and now the top 10 is a mess. I mean, you get teams falling out of the top 10, right on out of the top 25. You get teams moving in. Syracuse is 2-0. Life is good.
This just further underscores what I've been saying all along about the college football playoff. I don't need more than 4 to figure this thing out. It's Georgia and Alabama right now. Ohio State's very good. They'll be in the mix. I don't need more than 4 to figure this thing out. We're going to go to 12, and you can't tell me there are more than 5 teams in the country that are legit national contenders, national title contenders. There aren't.
No, because we'll figure out a lot more until then, or before then. I don't want 12, but I'll take 8. Because what if you get a team like App State? With 12, you might get a team like App State in there. They just beat the number 6 team in the country. Like, there are crazier things have happened. You know what I mean? Like, what if you get a team that's an underdog like them that's going to, just kind of squeak in, like a Cincinnati last year, or some team that is going to be good enough to eventually knock one of those teams off? I think that makes it fun. You get different fan bases involved. I think that's part of it too.
I don't disagree that it's more fun.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is we don't need more teams included to figure out who the best teams are in the country.
Yeah.
That
I know. Get blowouts, but in my opinion, you get blowouts when there are 4 teams. You've gotten blowouts in the semifinals, you've gotten blowouts in the national championship game. So I don't really care. I'm just in for college football, and I like including more teams. I don't like 12.
All right. Thanks for hanging out on this KPM Restoration
so
rapid reaction. I don't know what defines rapid. This was 22
long-winded
minutes.
reaction.
Maybe that isn't so rapid. I don't know. But that's week 1. Broncos win easily tonight, right, in Seattle. This will kind of be an interesting pregame lead up to Russell Wilson's return to the.
And we'll do this all again Thursday. We'll rehash every week 1 game you've got under the sun.
Gosh, I hope not. I'm looking forward to week 2 already at this point. And we'll have our Pick 6 vodka pick 'em as well. All right, everybody, have a great week.